Hey guys, this is Otz, or Otzdarva for short, and today I'm going to give you a very quick introduction to Dead by Daylight, so that you can enjoy watching videos and live streams even if you've never played the game before. So DBD is of course an asymmetrical PvP game where you can choose to play as either a single killer or one of 4 survivors, who can be playing by themselves or surviving with friends together. If you're watching someone play in first person and complain that the game is going too fast, you're watching someone play killer. And if you're watching someone play in third person and moan about their teammates not doing anything, then you're watching a survivor. There's a bunch of different maps, and each map is slightly different every time you play it, but the objectives are always the same. Survivors have to work together to slowly repair a certain number of generators. You can see how many are left right here. And after that, they must open the exit gates and escape. Or they can also escape through the hatch if they're the last one alive. Also down here in the HUD, you can check the state of the survivors. Survivors start as healthy, get injured when hit once, and get down when hit twice. When they're down, survivors take a really long time to bleed out, so this is not very efficient. Instead, killers are encouraged to pick them up and place them on a hook so that they can be sacrificed. Getting hooked starts a sacrifice timer that takes 2 minutes to complete. If you stay there 2 minutes, you die. If you get rescued and hooked again, you go straight to the next phase, so no matter what, a survivor will always die on their third hook. During the first phase of the sacrifice, survivors can try to unhook themselves, but the chance of doing this is very small, and if you fail, you accelerate the process, so it's generally not a good idea. So as you can see, the killer's objective is to sacrifice all of the survivors like this before they can escape. Although killers move faster, survivors have a lot of ways to slow them down. They can bolt through windows faster, they can drop pallets on the way, or even just hide and remain undetected. So killers have to pay a lot of attention and be very efficient with their time if they want to win. For this reason, you'll notice that streamers that play killer tend to be a lot more focused on the gameplay, while streamers that play survivor tend to have more time to interact with the chat. So if you want to interact or ask a question to the streamer, you might want to wait until the time is right. Something else that you should know is that while survivors all have the same stats and abilities, each killer has a unique power to them. The Trapper can place down bear traps that catch survivors, the Wraith can hide his presence and move faster while he's cloaked, the Hillbilly can sprint very fast with his chainsaw and one-shot survivors with it, the Nurse can teleport to close the gap to survivors, the Shape can stalk survivors and gain the ability to one-shot them temporarily, the Hag can place down traps and teleport to them when they're triggered, the Doctor can make survivors scream and inflict various debuffs on them, the Huntress can throw hatchets and injure survivors at a distance. The Cannibal also has a one-shot chainsaw, but uses it for multiple swings instead. The Nightmare puts survivors to sleep, slowing down their progress. The Peak can sneak up on survivors and place a reverse bear trap on them that can potentially kill them. The Clown can throw bottles to cover areas with gas, and this gas slows down survivors. The Spirit can disappear from the map and reappear quickly to catch survivors off guard. The Legion can go into a frenzy and run and stab multiple survivors in quick succession to get them all injured. And finally, the Plague vomits all over the place to infect survivors with a disease that slowly eats away their health. All of these powers can be further enhanced with add-ons, which you buy when you level up in this game. Most killers have at least 1 or 2 really strong add-ons that really spice up their gameplay. And while survivors don't get their own unique powers, they do get to carry items which also have add-ons. They go from things like toolboxes to speed up repairs, to medkits to heal faster, and flashlights to blind the killer. Some of the stronger items include medkits that can insta-heal injured survivors, and keys that let you open the hatch and escape before you're supposed to. On top of this, both killers and survivors can equip up to 4 perks that give them all sorts of advantages. There's a lot of perks in the game, and new ones are coming out with each chapter, so instead of trying to learn them all, I'm just gonna run you through some of the most common ones that you'll see in action. You will often see survivors use perks such as Sprint Burst to outrun the killer for a short time, Dead Hard to dash away and avoid damage for a second, Unbreakable to pick themselves up from the ground without any help, Borrowed Time to protect the survivor that just got unhooked, Medal of Man to resist an extra hit before going down, and Adrenaline, which heals the survivor and speeds them up when all the generators are completed. And if you watch a survivor, you'll see them deal with killer perks like Ruin, which slows down the generator repairs and is pretty annoying. Ruin is a special hex perk, which means that it's active until someone finds the hex totem that's powering it up. If the totem is destroyed, the perk will be disabled for the rest of the game. No One Escapes Death, or NOED, is another very strong hex perk, but this one activates at the end of the game when all the generators are completed. For as long as this perk stays up, the killer normal attacks will one-shot survivors, so you'll often see survivors try to cleanse totems to prevent this perk from activating. Each character, killer or survivor, has their own unique perks that they start with. When you level them up enough, you can unlock those perks as teachables, and after that, every other character can learn them. So eventually, all the characters will have access to all of the perks. And now for some very quick explanations of some of the things that you will see on screen. Auras are the highlights that you can see through walls and across the maps. Some of them you can see by default, like generators if you're a killer, and some others will only appear with certain perks equipped. Scratch marks are visual cues that are left on the ground and on the walls when a survivor is running through the area. These marks are only visible to the killers, and they help them keep track of where the survivor is going. Blood trails are left on the ground by survivors who are injured, and just like scratch marks, they go away after a while. And finally, Bloodlust is a mechanic that gives the killer a temporary speed boost if a chase is going for too long. If you see this icon on screen, it means that it's on right now. Survivors will often try to stun the killer with a pallet or force him to break it, because those are some of the only ways that you can break Bloodlust and make it reset. And now from the survivor's point of view, here at the bottom we've got the progress bar that lets us know how much time is left on whatever action is being done. If there's anything slowing it down, we'll see it in red. And if there's something speeding it up, we'll see it in yellow. During most actions, survivors will get random QTEs known as skill checks. If you hit the great check, you get bonus progression. If you hit the good check, you continue normally. And if you fail the skill check, you lose progress and you make a loud noise that alerts the killer. Also notice that because we're the only survivor alive, the game is telling us that we can escape by either completing 2 generators or finding the hatch. You might have also noticed that sometimes one of the survivors has these claws around their icon. This means that they're the obsession. This can be triggered by killer or survivor perks, and depending on which perk it is, it means different things. Sometimes the killer will want to focus on the obsession, and sometimes they'll just want to ignore it entirely. And finally, this thing right here is the red stain. Survivors can hear an increasingly loud heartbeat when the killer comes close, known as the terror radius, and they can also tell that the killer is going around the corner by seeing this red bright light that appears in front of them. This is the reason why you'll see many killers walk backwards during a chase. They want to hide their red light and try to catch a survivor off guard. And some other things that we haven't seen yet. Offerings are a consumable item that players burn at the start of the match. They can do things like give you extra points, change the map you're going to, and so on. The strongest kind of offering is a memento mori. Moris can let the killer straight up murder survivors after they've been hooked once. And as you can imagine, they're pretty powerful. The basement is a room that appears in every single map, although not always in the same spot. It always has a chest with an item in it, but being there is very dangerous because it only has one way in and one way out, so if you get hooked in the basement, it's very easy for the killer to defend you. Also, the endgame collapse is a new phase that starts when the match is about to finish. Basically, if survivors don't leave by the time the meter runs out, they get sacrificed on the spot, and they count as a kill. Also, if you're gonna watch streams, you're probably gonna hear these terms very often, so let me explain what they mean. Camping is when a killer doesn't leave the hook and just stays there. Tunneling is when a killer ignores everybody else and focuses entirely on one survivor to kill them as soon as possible. And slugging is when a killer leaves survivors on the ground for a long time instead of picking them up. All 3 of these things can be very unfun to play against, but most killers will have to do at least a little bit of them in order to win. So it's up to you to figure out if the killer that you're watching is being an asshole or if they're just being smart. At the end of the day, the appeal of Dead by Daylight and what makes it fun to play and watch is the fact that each game plays out differently. Now that you know the basics of it, I hope that watching DVD is a lot more enjoyable. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in one of my streams.